Are you one of the 300 plus million people that suffer from anxiety? Well, if you are, listen to some of these stats. They're kind of astonishing, actually. So, as with anything, the stats are 2 and 3 years behind. I was able to pull some stats from the World Health Organization on anxiety. And it's estimated globally that 301 million people, and this was 2003 from the WHO, suffer from anxiety. And anxiety can be anything from generalized anxiety disorder to a panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, specific phobias that might trigger an anxiety attack or an episode. And then you have, if you go into the actual mental health disorder for global, anxiety disorder is the #1 mental health diagnosis globally. And maybe you say that's okay. It's common. Everyone has, times where they're anxious. It's just part of life. Is it? Maybe. But the stats that I pulled from the National Institute of Mental Health, they estimated that in the U.S., 20% of the adult population experience anxiety disorder on any given year, and over 31% in a lifetime. 7% of all children ages 3 to 17 are affected by this. And it's estimated that in the United States, for adults, 20% have or have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, and another 10 to 15% are walking around undiagnosed. So they never go to the doctor to get diagnosed. They suffer through their anxiety, their panic attacks, whatever the case may be, which is probably most of us, right? So put that together, and that's roughly 35% of the adult population of the United States that are suffering from anxiety. Well, the estimated population is now, this is not breaking down how many kids, how many adults, but the estimated population is 347 million in the United States today, give or take. And so if you take 35% of that, so 35% of that is 121 million people are suffering from anxiety, whether it's diagnosed or whether it's undiagnosed. On any given day, on any given week, in any given year. And these could be from all different things. These could be from maybe food insecurity, right? You don't know where your next meal's coming from. It could be from dangerous living conditions. Do you have an abuser in your household? Are you being raped? Is there a domestic violence situation going on? How about, are you homeless and you don't have a home to go to? And so you're out on the street, and the anxiety of being out on the street and putting yourself out there and being subject to anything that could happen to you, not a good feeling, right? So you would tend to develop some anxiety over that. How about unemployment? 25% of Americans are unemployed right now. And you don't know how you're going to get from day to day and pay your mortgage, and you're looking at losing everything. how about mental illness just in general? Maybe it's in your genes. Maybe your family has had a history of mental illness, and it's passed down to you. And so you have that genetic predisposition. How about the feeling of isolation? This is a big one. So, from the turn of COVID, from about 2020, we were all isolated, and some of us were isolated before that. So, I was diagnosed with cancer in 2019. So, from 2019 to 2020, I was going through almost a year of chemo and radiation where I could not get out and really be amongst the living, the population. I had to shelter in place, keep myself away from people because I had no immune system. If I caught something, it could mean my death, because they have to bring your immune system down so much that a cold could potentially kill you. So you have to be extremely careful. So I had a year of that, and before anyone was wearing gloves and masks, when I would go to the grocery store, I was in gloves and masks. And I remember going in and people just staring. But they don't know what's going on. They don't know that after you get out of the grocery store, you're going to go sit in a chemo chair for 4 or 5 hours and get your treatment. And then you're going to be sick for 5 days or 6 days. They just don't know those things. And so they view you, and there's a bias. And then let's talk about our kids, our teenagers. And I went through this with, as a manager, I had to deal with all levels of people. I had someone who was 80-something years old on my team, and I had people that were 19 years old on my team. So you get that span of generational, and you have like different personalities, but then you have the generational aspect of trying to manage 80-year-olds versus 19-year-olds, and it's totally different. So the 19-year-olds don't want to talk to you. They don't want to do anything. They want you to send whatever in a text. That is just their mode. They don't like talking to people. They won't get off their phones. So you have to try to manage all that. Well, what they're doing and what they've done, and I think this goes for the 30-year-olds and maybe some 40-year-olds. What if we allowed our children to do? Come home, go in their room, shut the door, and get on video games. Come home, go in the room, get on their telephone. I mean, their cell phone is glued. We're getting 6 and 7-year-olds their own cell phone. Let's talk about that. And so we have this generational where people don't want to talk to one another. They want to isolate. They want to go inside. They want to get on the internet. They want to, get in chat rooms and whatever. That is in social media, that is their perceived friend base, if you will. So they don't have that direct interaction every day like someone older might have had in jobs and growing up. I was like, we had to interact, right? We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet like that. If anything, when it came into being, the first Apple computers and whatnot, it was dial-up. And I know some of you don't even know what that means, but we didn't just want to run in our room and get on a computer for a dial-up internet connection. So we did a lot of stuff. We played outside. We played with neighborhood kids. We interacted. We learned music. We were, there was ballet. There was different activities, whatever it may have been. Kids nowadays, they don't really have that. The parents let them, the cell phones tend to be a babysitter. Just go in the other room, here, go play a video game, get out of my hair. So these kids grow up and all they want to do is play video games. And we're wondering why we're seeing, 30 and 40-year-olds on skateboards and playing video games. It's crazy, but it's our society. And now, as of last night, Israel has just struck Iran. So now there's more uncertainty and upheaval in the Middle East. And can you imagine being anywhere in the Middle East and having to wonder where your next meal is going to come from, or if in the middle of the night you're going to get your home is going to get bombed? That has to take a toll on your mental health. I can't see in any circumstance where it would not. I don't care who you are or what you're doing. It is going to take a toll on your mental health. And we have people here now that have no jobs. They have no ability to get food. They're losing their homes, their apartments. They're living out of their cars. Dumpster diving is a thing again. I mean, we are getting in this is supposed to be the United States. Things like that don't happen here, but they are happening here, and they're happening here at a fast clip. And the more AI comes in, the more we're going to depend on computers, the more we're going to lose jobs. It's going to be a vicious cycle. The less we're going to interact with people, the more social anxiety disorder we're going to have as a whole. So this 121 million estimated, and like I said, I didn't break it down. I didn't say adults versus children. I took a trend of what the Mental Health Organization said it was in 2023, and I applied that same trend to our now current population of 347 million. So 121 million people are walking around with an anxiety disorder, a phobia, fear, panic attacks. It's got to hit hard. And how about chronic illness, right? This is a health-related channel, so let's talk about chronic illness. So can you imagine if you're a small kid? Can you imagine if your mom has to watch you like a hawk because you have asthma and it's a severe asthma? Or your dad has to watch you? They're going to have anxiety, right? Every time you go out and run down the driveway or it's just going to be, oh, don't do that, because they know what that can cause. They know that you could go into an asthma attack, or if you get around animals, or whatever the trigger might be for your asthma. And being the child, not being able to breathe. I can tell you right now, I've been in the position where I could not breathe. It is not a comfortable feeling, not being able to get your breath and have your O2 sat in the 80s. Not comfortable at all. And it is very anxiety driven. So what about cancer or heart disease? Thinking, I have a bad heart, maybe you're on a wait list for a transplant and you're just wondering if you're going to make it. You're wondering if you're going to get that phone call to get the match. Or you're wondering if you're going to get bumped down again. I mean, just that anxiety alone is huge. And maybe you have an autoimmune disease. And when I say autoimmune disease, for some of you that don't know what autoimmune is just this expansive diagnosis. So it can range from anything to IBS to irritable bowel syndrome, all the way to a life-threatening ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, and everything in between, like myasthenia gravis. It could be multiple sclerosis, it can be arthritis. All of those are autoimmune diseases. It could be a autoimmune disease like anemia-based hepatic, where your system just attacks itself and it eats all your red blood cells and you need transfusions. I actually had a dog that had that, and it's not fun, right? It's scary. There's anxiety with that. So how do we handle anxiety? For someone that has panic attacks, I can tell you, and someone who experiences anxiety for many reasons right now, some being health, it's not easy. And, you go through all your things, and I used to journal quite a bit, and I've kind of gotten away from that because I tend to journal, my scarcity, if you will, or I tend to focus on that issue. So I've kind of gotten away from journaling and getting my feelings out there. I still journal, just not daily. What has helped me is I started reading the Bible. When I start into one of my attacks or I start getting anxious, I will sit and I'll pull out my Bible and I'll just start reading and making notes. That's a calming effect for me. It just is. I was never religious growing up. I wanted to be. My family just wasn't. I had some really, really bad experiences with trying to stick my big toe in the water, if you will, with the organized religion here in Texas. I went to, on one occasion, I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and my best friend who lived down the street, he was going to a summer camp with his church. So they were able to bring friends. So I wanted to go to the summer camp. And in that summer camp, they were talking about Jesus, and they were talking about accepting Jesus Christ into your heart. And they were having the kids walk down, and they were basically baptizing some of the children. Well, I wanted to be saved. And I was not familiar with Sunday school. I was not familiar with the Bible deeply as a whole. Like I could not really tell you about the story of Abraham, or I knew the basics, right? The birth and the death of Jesus Christ. I knew about the great flood and Noah, and about stuff like that. So I went down, and they pulled me aside, and they said, "Oh, no. And I was like tiny tot, and they called my mom to come pick me up. They said she shouldn't be here. She doesn't know what she's doing. I just wanted to be like all the other kids. And I was really wanting to get into religion, and my family was not religious. And then I actually went on another occasion with another friend. So one was Baptist, one was Methodist, and that didn't turn out well. So I kind of gave up on organized religion, and I had Bibles all around my house, and my mother would always get me a Bible. I mean, she's like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I was like, "A Bible." She's like, "You have so many," and I go, "I don't care. I want another one." And I would read, but I still didn't understand. Like I could read a verse in the Bible, and I would have 30 questions that I had no one to go to for the answers. And this was before the internet, before ChatGPT. It was before any of that. So I struggled. And then my mom, my mom used to love to go to church, but she lived in a little town in Mart, Texas, down by Waco. And her and her sister, my aunt, would sneak out, and they would go down, and they would just they would hide in the bushes, because there was an African American community church, and they went down there, and they would hide in the bushes, and they would listen to the music and listen to the singing, and they were just like, they wanted to go in so bad, but they couldn't. And on one occasion, someone saw them and said, "Come on in." And they went in, and they sat in the back. Well, they got in trouble for that. So it was just like, she was like, "Oh my gosh, the music, everything, it was just so moving." They were little girls, and they just wanted to be a part of that each and every Sunday. But it just wasn't a thing in her family. So it kind of wasn't a thing when we were growing up. And we were kind of left to our own devices as a very large family. Then my mom got cancer, and I said, "What do you want to do?" And she goes, "I want you to go to church with me." And I thought, oh, that alone sent me I was having anxiety on that alone, just stepping inside of a church. And I said, okay. So we found a church just in the area. We went to it, and we went for a whole year, and we were loving it. And I took her every Sunday because that's what she wanted to do. And she was a smoker her whole life, as most people in that era were. And she died of lung cancer that met her brain and her spine. So when I tell you to quit smoking, I'm telling you, I've seen the repercussions from it, and you need to stop. So we went, we were in church, we were having a great time. The music was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. The messages that they were preaching were wonderful. And then what happens? The preacher announces that he's no longer going to be the pastor of the church, that he was caught having an affair with someone in the congregation, and he was married with children. So he was taking his wife and his kids on a cruise. I'm sure before she probably got most of everything he had. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is happening again. This is just like my third strike. And so after my mom died, about a year, I want to say for a full year, I was so angry with God. God kind of promises, I won't let anyone suffer. I'll take the old, I'll take the animals, I'll take the children. They won't suffer. But that's really not the case. there's a lot of suffering involved with cancer, especially. Um, so I had to watch and I had to go through. And to sit there and to hold your mom's hand when as she cannot take that breath, and all you want to do is change places with her and be able to breathe for her. And then you watch the monitor and you watch the heartbeat go into asystole, which is flatline. And you talk about feeling insignificant and small. If you've experienced anything like that, you get me. You know what I'm talking about. It's a hard thing to come back from. So for about a year, I absolutely did not step foot. I was mad at God. Did not read my Bible. I was angry. And that was that. And then I thought, nope. And I found a church about 30 miles from me, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go. And I went and I tried the church, and I liked it, and I went through all their classes. I made myself go for a year consecutively, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to get baptized. I'm going to get saved. So I went to the sunrise service on Easter, and I got baptized. And it wasn't a couple of months after that the pastor came up and you know, she had been involved with an extramarital affair, and it was just it was the same thing that was occurring. And I was like, I can't do this. And I know not all churches are like that, but it just seems like every time I went to try to get that would happen. So now, and then I started listening to kind of Joel Osteen until he went off in left field, and that became an issue. And so now I listen to various other individuals that are on YouTube and whatnot, and Joyce Myers and whatnot, when I want to get a message or get the word. And I just read my Bible, and it helps. It does help with anxiety, but when you're in the middle of a panic attack, it's actually hard to sit there and try to read when you can't breathe, and your heart's going crazy. So, you know, we do what we have to do, and whatever that might be for you, if you're in one of these situations of food scarcity, or maybe you're in an abusive household, or you're in the Middle East and you're fearful that every time you close your eyes, you might not wake up the next morning, or you might have your whole family disappear. All we can do is do what we can do. And I say that, and it sounds stupid, but find something. I don't care if it's, I have prayer beats, and you'll occasionally see me, and I'll put them in my hands as I'm doing some of these, and you'll hear them clicking, and sometimes I'll put them on and wear them. These help me. So this is one of my things. Maybe it's exercise for you. Maybe you can go out, and if you're having somewhat of a panic attack, anxiety disorder, maybe you can go out and go for a walk, right? Get in the sunshine, go for a walk. Try to remove yourself from whatever it is that's causing you the anxiety. Take a deep breath, hold it. Do some relaxation breathing techniques. We just have to do what we can do. Because here again, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but a lot of people need medication to handle their anxiety or their mental health disorder. Some need to be heavily medicated. I had maternal cousin, God rest her soul, she had schizophrenia, and it was hard. It was hard because I would be the one she would call when she was in one of her episodes. And hers was a paranoid schizophrenia. And it was horrible. It was horrible for her, and it was horrible for me to be on the end to try to talk her down, to try to get her husband on the phone, to try to, because she was out in the garage crouched down behind something thinking that they were coming for her. Or it was difficult. So someone like that needs to be on medication. They need to be managed by a healthcare mental health specialist. Walking around the block isn't going to help them. So you have to kind of do what you need to do. For those that need to be on medication, get on medication. If you think that you can handle your anxiety disorder or your condition, whatever that might be, in a more natural way, then try and do that. And you need to also look at what you're eating. Because if you're fueling your body and with good foods, high impact nutrient foods, like your greens and your grains and all your vegetables and fruits, and your low fat proteins and lean proteins, you're gonna feel better, right? You're just gonna feel better. Maybe you'll have a little less weight. Maybe you'll be a little less anxious. Maybe you'll be the one to secure that job from 500 plus applications. It's a snowball effect, really. And if you haven't gone back and you haven't watched my other episodes, you need to, because I talked about the cost of being overweight, the actual cost, and how many tens of thousands of dollars that you're missing out on, probably 6 to 7 figures in an adult lifetime because you're overweight. Because if you take something and, you're losing all this money, and please go back and review that episode, you're paying more for everything. And you're having to pay for medical, and you're having to pay for medications, and you're having to do this, and then you're not getting jobs, and you're getting lower promotions than your thinner counterpart and all that stuff. Well, if you take all of those losses of money you're having to dish out, and premiums you're having to pay, and you use compound interest over the course of 40 years, take a look at what that's going to be. It's millions. It could be millions of dollars in a lifetime that you are going to lose because you are overweight. And I say overweight, and again, I'm using overweight and obese interchangeably. So the best thing you can do for your health, the first thing you can do for your health, stop smoking if you smoke. The second thing needs to be your food. Stop the highly processed foods. Stop them. The drive-thrus, the DoorDashes, everything that you're doing, the pizzas, the chips, the cakes, everything. Stop it. Eat food in its natural state. The fruits, the vegetables, the legumes. I mean, everything's processed unless you're growing it. And I'm just going to say that right now. A can of beans off the shelf is processed. Milk is processed. Our steak that we get out of the grocery store counter is processed. So is our chicken. It's highly processed. Our fish is processed. It's farm raised. What they're feeding it is highly processed. It's GMO feed and grains, and it's not good for our body. We are not, the antibiotics and everything, we're not doing our body a favor. And with that, do I think that some of the anxiety, I'm not a doctor, certainly, but do I think that when I eat healthier, I have less anxiety? Yeah, I can say that I do. When I'm thinner, I'm more agile. I have less pain in my body. My heart tends to do a little better than what it's doing now. And, when your heart goes. The chances of you getting another one are slim. So you need to take care of it. And being overweight and smoking and having high blood pressure and diabetes, all those things kill your heart. What else is bad for your heart? Sleep apnea can lead to AFib. And if you have certain types of sleep apnea like mine, I was waking up with these horrible headaches in the morning, and I mean horrible. And I couldn't understand the moment I opened my eyes. Like, this headache was so bad. It was so painful. I did not know what was going on. Well, I had centralized sleep apnea. During my sleep, multiple times during the night, my brain stopped telling my diaphragm and my lungs to breathe. And I would just stop. So my body, my lungs, my organs, the blood, the tissues, they were not getting oxygen that they needed. And I did not know that. I thought sleep apnea was like snoring. Oh, you snore. Here, be on a CPAP. Okay, so you snore, big deal. That's what I thought. And we all think that, I think, to a point. We're not educated. We don't know. We can get online. We can look stuff up. But who can we trust? Not even the doctors know all this. And especially the doctors that are coming up now. There are no good diagnosticians in any of these medical students that are graduating. We're losing all of our good diagnosticians. And I'm going to end that there. All they know how to do is look at a radiology report and read it, the actual report. They don't even know how to look really at the actual film or the image. And when they get your blood work back, they just go down and look to see whether it's flagged high or low. They're not even looking at your number, to where they're looking at all these things and they're going, yeah, it's in range, but wow, that's kind of low. And with this, well, if you add those two together plus this is what I think's going on. They don't do that. They look at what's high, what's low, and they come back and go, oh, your blood work's good. We're going to release you. So, anxiety is nothing to play with. It can lead to more serious mental disorders. Find out what works best for you and do it. And I wish you all the luck in the world. Try the beads. These are great. Or you can get one of those little stress balls and squeeze it. Go for a walk. Play with your dog or your cat. That's a big, big deal. It's been shown to lower blood pressure. in adults. So there's a lot of things we can do. We just have to want to do them for ourselves. And you know, until next time. Anxiety can be a bad thing because when you're anxious, it can lead to depression, and then we're going to talk about what that can lead to. I think we all know the worst outcome of depression. So until next time, I'll see you.